Hello, good morning, everyone. Uh, this is 11 a.m. Sunday Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra's regular session. This morning, due to other um, prior commitment, I can only do the talk. So therefore, this is being recorded. For that purpose, we won't have the meditation. But I'm here to give the series of talk on Eightfold Path, of which we have finished the first four. So I will firstly do the prayers, which is to tune my mind and also of yours, if you also want to take part in the listening, not just listening, but also a form of your own mindfulness and stillness and clarity and compassion, a way of looking things by your genuine devotion to the triple gem. It is very important Buddhist culture and tradition to always collect the qualities of the fully enlightened one, the Buddha, and then his precious teaching and his noble Sangha that holds the teaching all these years. So I'll first say that and then do the reading recitation of the four immeasurables also before the talk on the topic. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Zanga Ajere Vidalajame Bhavacha Ajevendala Ashare Padavatuve and the Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Vijalajama Bhavachu Ajevendala Ashare Padavatuve and the Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Vijalajama Bhavachu Ajevendala Ashare Padavatuve. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a path from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those never. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a path from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those never. May all beings happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from judgment and aversion to those near and far. God into the intelligence and bread position of it. Where the yatanda dharma agrelo and come goes. So, okay, so the Eightfold Path, of which we have covered the first four, right view, right attitudes, right action, and right speech. These are the first four. There are 8 of these, and these are the central to the Buddhist teachings. Of the Four Noble Truth teachings, Buddha said there are four truth of suffering, and truth of origin. And in order to, first one has to understand the truth of suffering, and then one must learn to eradicate the truth of origin. But that which does the eradication is if you follow the fourth truth of the path. So when we talk about the truth of path has 8-fold paths. There are 8 types of facets of the practice. So these are all not sort of practiced individually, separately, but when one practices one of them, it has to be connected with all the others as well. But we are talking here each of them individually, with the view of people learning how to intersect each of these various facets of the Eightfold Path as one whole, because all of these put together creates the vehicle. Vehicle is the yana, or the vehicle from which some stranded sentient beings could be ferried and rescued to the other shore that is beyond sorrow and its causes. So in order to do that, one needs to practice what we call the 3 trainings. The 3 training of Shila, the discipline, training of meditation, training the wisdom. So when we divide all this, the Eightfold Path are subdivision of the 3 higher trainings. The 3 higher trainings of discipline, self-discipline, meditation, and wisdom are very important. So the what do you call the Sila itself is right action, right speech, and because one needs to abstain from harmful physical or verbal behavior to other sentient beings, and so we covered those already. And here this fifth one is right livelihood, is also belong to this the component of self-discipline. Self-discipline is a practice that oneself becomes conscious of what one needs to do to curtail certain habits that are harmful to oneself and to others, and therefore have severe consequences. And instead, one needs to adopt certain wholesome habits or actions that are not only wholesome to the look, but also is beneficial for oneself and others, and it promotes happiness and causes. So therefore, the Shila as the 3 trainings is the self-discipline, is a very much a part of also of the Vinaya. So here we are today to talk about the 5th one, right livelihood. So right livelihood really mainly concerns with people who are monastics, and then ordinary people who are bound by the upasaka vows, and also what may be regarded, generally speaking, a wrong livelihood by society as a whole. Whether the person, so let's look in these 3 different categories for monastics and upasaka and ordinary people. So right livelihood means that each of these 3 categories of people are expected to live a particular way that is right way of making a living. So one has to live very honest and harmless, and that doesn't come at the injury of others. And so therefore one's way of making a living is reasonably acceptable to all norms of society. or to pertaining to particular sets of vows and precepts one has taken, and it is not treated as your livelihood is not treated as questionable or unacceptable by the society. So, broadly speaking, that's what right livelihood. Right livelihood basically suggests what is wrong livelihood. So we need to really see what are the wrong livelihood that the Buddhist teachings, and particularly sutras, basically the Eightfold Path are more explicit in the traditional original Buddhist teachings of the sutras. Whether they are the Theravada Sutras or Mahayana Sutra, there is no major difference, except the Mahayana component is there may be certain livelihood that may outwardly not acceptable in the sutra, but from the Mahayana point of view, it's different. So we come to that in a minute. For instance, in the Samyukta Nikaya, it's a sutra, it says, and what is right livelihood? There is the case where a disciple of the Noble One, having abandoned dishonest livelihood, keeps his life going with right livelihood. So this is called right livelihood. So there's a particular way that a person makes a living that is proper by the Vinaya, and particularly as a monastic. Right livelihood is one measure to ensure your a manner of making a living that is not wrong, so that one gets one's livelihood by doing right things, not by doing wrong things. So right living consists of living a life based on the precepts of the Eightfold Path, and therefore Eightfold Path, of which Eightfold Path is right livelihood is one, and observing the spirit of the teaching and the letter of the teachings. It is therefore it's a deliberate abstention from excessive desire and greediness, and therefore developing a sense of simplicity and equanimity, and no coveting, no greedy hoarding and amassing of mundane material possessions for one's own purposes. Because for the monastic, it is not one is not meant to possess or save or guard or hoard anything anyway. So one must live on a very, very simple. So it means to lead a pure and wholesome life, and so that one's wanting things to possess or own does not cause direct or indirect injury to any living being. And so therefore one only uses that is one's own things, and so therefore one is not deviating from the path by stealing or by a dishonest way of possessing and profiting oneself too much, and therefore one remains detached from such great many wantings. And through this awareness, one also knows even if one has possessions, they're all transient. They're all cause of conflict and discord, even with the loved ones. Therefore, one does not want to engage in such cause of discord by greediness and covetousness and possessiveness. Because of that, one is adopting a living that would finally lead to the minimization of the greed and possessive karma of that, and therefore one will be free from suffering and the causes, because all suffering comes from desire, and then anger, and then pride, and competitiveness, all of that. So minimization of one's desire, therefore, is a renunciation. So therefore, here we are referring, let us talk mainly the right livelihood of a monastic as an example. So So for the monastics, they're bound by the teachings. They are mundane kind of livelihood, as well as ultra mundane livelihood. Mundane livelihood is that which leads beings to gain, make profit, and gain great results and great returns for oneself. So most people makes a living mundanely in order to increase the income, in order to increase the profit, in order to increase the value, always looking ways of how to acquire more. So it's constantly in the hunt for more, and that kind of greed and craving is the cause of suffering. So whereas the practitioner who has entered the path and has taken a monastic vow, of course they should live very simple and a balanced life, whereby they will be living within their means and not. For instance, he says even for a lay person, a householder knowing his income expenses leads to his balanced life. He knows this is enough for me, and I don't need to put excessive effort to get more than this, because then he has a balanced life. So he neither lives a very extravagant life, nor having to live very miserly, knowing that this is his necessary income, and this is a necessary that he has to have to cover his expenses. So therefore he lives within his means. Even he can get it, he does not entertain the getting more than what he needs. So that would be regarded as a balanced sort of livelihood, where there is no great cause of the problem. But there are most human beings, lay people, are not able to. They don't have a particular statement saying this is my balanced life, this is enough for me. Very few has that, because almost they don't have a vow to do that, whereas the monastics has. So just as the goldsmith or an apprentice of his knows on holding up a balance that by so much it has dipped down, by so much it has tilted up. Even so, a householder, knowing his income and expenses, leads a balanced life, neither extravagant nor too miserly, knowing that his income will stand in excess of his expenses, but not his expenses in excess of his income. So that will be regarded as a balance householder's life, and therefore they don't work like three jobs and almost having no time to sleep or do anything like that. A lot of people become like that once they go to a country or place. They just forget living. They just want to make more money, making money. Almost their quality of life is completely reduced, and they just spend so much time just getting more and more income. So that will slowly leads to greed and possessiveness and tiredness, exhaustion, and therefore no balance. And then they will start resorting to alcohol, and then that might sort of completely tip the balance. So therefore, a person has more danger of going into the leading a wrong livelihood. So the teaching talks about wrong livelihood lay followers, and so wrong livelihood the monastics. So briefly, let's talk about the wrong livelihood the monastics, even though it's not relevant to majority of people because they are not going to be a monastic. But still, the Buddha says that even monastic may live within the kind of within the kind of limitation of what is allowed, but still sometimes one can resort to what they call these 5 kinds of wrong livelihood for the monastics, and then other just as many wrong livelihood for the lay people. So let's talk about the wrong livelihood of the monastic. Monastics can use hypocrisy by boasting that they are real, they have high realization, they have clairvoyance, and their divinations are accurate, and so they might use such things in order to, this kind of hypocrisy of using that way. They try to prop up their importance. That would be a wrong livelihood, and also the monastic should not act as a go-between people doing business or arranging marriages or matchmaking. Oh, you should marry my niece type of thing, or something like that. So those things are not appropriate, they're wrong. And also is talking about such a good practitioner, almost saying that how good or worthy of recipient of gift or dana he is, because he's unlike the other practitioners, and therefore making hinting the people to give to him, and then almost deliberately belittling others who don't give, and then hinting them to give, and so anyway, so seeking to gain favor from others, even though one is not really making deliberately with hands a living, but even though one relies totally on the generosity of others, making some hints and various kind of ways to get personal gains and profit, and saying how worthy one is as a recipient of generosity, and because I'm senior, I realize my meditation is good and it helps you, and if a person is sort of making a little bit of boasting of his own spiritual practice or discipline or meditation, and thus making some kind of indirect remarks of how worthy a recipient he is. If he's bolstering his income or gain by doing that, then it is a form of whether you call wrong livelihood or not. It is a form of greed, expressing greed. There's no sign of restraining greed or possessiveness. There is almost like a slight tactic use, kind of very skillfully used as how to get more. So that would be regarded as a wrong livelihood for them, for the monastics. Of course, so let's not go into that now, because there are so few monastics, and it is more sort of relevant for themselves to consider. Now let's look at more relevant for lay people. What is a wrong livelihood is mainly pertaining to themselves having taken the precepts. If they have taken the 5 precepts or observed the 8 precepts for life, then of course the following wrong livelihood the Buddha dissuaded from people from doing must be abstained. There are 5 wrong livelihood for the lay people that are explicitly mentioned in the Anguttara Nikaya Sutra. It says one should not engage in 5 types of business. 5 types of business. Which 5? Business in weapons, and business in human beings, business in meat, and business in intoxicants, and business in poisons. So I think these are very, very all kind of old-fashioned listing of these things. Of course, business and weapons, of course, is very obvious. So if you are engaged in importing or exporting or promoting or making or manufacturing or selling, and or even having investment in some companies' dividends that sells sells weapons, of course. So all the company dividends are very, very dangerous, isn't it? They are so interconnected. So business in weapons, and second, business in human beings. This is talking about human trafficking. That could be, I suppose, business in human also means probably prostitution, or whether engaging and organizing prostitution, or oneself is sort of using those things will be regarded as a wrong livelihood. And then business and meat is basically killing, because the whole kind of arbitrage or killing machines of animals from animals, and when one owns the business, whether one transports them, whether one promotes them. So even so, these days you could, even if you are in advertisement industry, if you're in advertisement industry, you don't advertise business of weapons, business is selling human beings and meat. And if you do, then your advertising advertising business would be advertising these kind of wrong livelihood businesses. Why they are wrong is because they are a weapon of such a mass destruction, and then selling human beings, basically human trafficking, whether for exploitation or whatever is the reason, and also then killing and producing and then selling meat and bones and fur and coats and leather, and all of that would be regarded as a wrong livelihood. And business in intoxicant, this is like running a bar or selling alcohol, even as a bartender. I think even working as a bar in the bar would be regarded as a working in the industry of bar, and then of course business in poison. So basically selling drug and alcohol and any kind of intoxicant. So those 5 are very, very old. Even during Buddha's time, they are regarded as a very wrong as a livelihood. Why it's wrong is, firstly, it's a very lucrative business, because when profits are big. Secondly, what you're trading in is harmful. Weapons. That kills people, that destroys people, and so on. So therefore, it is definitely wrong livelihood, because basically you are making livelihood that actually comes at the expense of lives that are going to be life, and houses and homes and bridges and road and everything are destroyed by the weapons when they bomb the roads, when they bomb the bridges, when they try to cut off the communications, and they try to destroy the water reservoirs, all the weapons that are used in war. And anyone who's involved in originally planning them, designing them, people talk about they work in they may not necessarily directly involve it, but the fact that what their technology that they're studying is actually used to produce those weapons, like nuclear kind of technology, is basically useful if it's used properly. But if it goes in the wrong hand, it is one that is most dangerous, destructive weapons created from nuclear warheads. And so this shows. So all of these 5 are mentioned as wrong livelihood for lay people. And there's also saying that because you shouldn't be doing anything to, like even as an entertainer. If you are an entertainer, say in whatever entertain, you entertain in a way to arouse people's craving and desire, and then people enjoy your entertainment so much they go and drink more and they stay longer than they should. So basically you are indirectly your entertainment, or even sometimes music. Even music is regarded as a form that actually makes people to enjoy a little bit, then slowly they drink, and then that. So there's some teachings also say that if the music itself musicians can also be a form of livelihood, they must be careful if they engage in industries where their music is not for positive celebration, but where there's a lot of drinking and staying late night and inducing each other, arousing each other through the music, through the tone, through the acting, and by the way, acting is also so the actors actors also are particularly questionable kind of profession according to the teachings of the Buddha. And also Buddha has mentioned specifically in the Digha Nikaya Sutra that wrong livelihood for the contemplatives. These are people who are really deep into meditation, and so because quite a lot of people, monks in like various parts in Buddhist countries, quite a lot of the monks are treated as someone who can read the future or no, read the people's mind, and people go and consult them. If the monks make a living by reading people's palmistry, that's a wrong livelihood. And then reading omens and signs and telling this will happen to you, this will happen, this kind of thing also is a wrong livelihood. And then also doing kind of a interpretation of your astrological stars and things like that, and interpreting people's dreams, using phrenology. The phrenology means reading people's body marks and so on like that, and also reading marks on the cloth gnawed by mice, or offering fire oblation from a ladle. People have various reading oblation from husk, rice powder, rice grain, ghee, and oil, offering oblation from the mouth, offering blood sacrifices, making prediction based on fingertips, geomancy, laying demons in the cemetery, placing spells on spirits, reciting house protection charms. The house blessing, I think. House blessing might be. Snake charming, poison law, scorpion law, rat law, bird law, crow law, fortune telling based on visions, giving protective charms, interpreting the calls of birds and animals. So this is very, 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 very detailed list of things. So that shows that there are lots of Tibetan lamas would be doing these things. Would be doing these people's palms and doing divination and so on. In the sutras, these are not recommended. These are, of course, they may not, some people might be deliberately charging by each calculation. But the good thing about that, I know for sure, I'm not being biased here, that the Tibetan lamas, whoever do these things, they never charge. They never charge. If people make an offering, and then that's it. But they never charge, however many questions people have to various divination. But according to this, that one shouldn't be doing any of that. Why? Because it's almost like a pseudo-spiritual practices by telling people that their life has been harmed by some people doing charm to you and things like that. It's really not helping anybody, but make yourself as a form of a living. You make a living by doing these sort of things. Saying my divination is accurate, and people said that in our villages, such and such lamas or nuns divination is very accurate, and everybody queuing up early in the morning to see that people. While it may be helpful to solve some people who are not able to make their mind, take responsibility, make their own decision, but they always rely on someone else's supposed spiritual kind of clairvoyance. They may lack any knowledge when they're going to die, what will happen tomorrow to them, but they seem to think they know about other people's life. So Buddhist teaching doesn't really recommend even doing that, let alone making a living from that. So that is a what you call wrong livelihood, is definitely regarded as a not recommended form of making a living. Even if you do for free, it is not really helping people. Say somebody like in Tibetan Buddhist divination more text, it says, I have looked quite a few of them, and I never was impressed with them. It says, such and such, if this dice number falls, and it says, your family gods has harmed you, or someone is putting talking bad things about you. And to avert that, you got to do this and that sort of thing, you know. But instead of saying that, if the person really genuinely came to see the teacher or monastic with a genuine Dharma question, you just say that all the suffering comes from true origin of suffering. That is the self-grasping and afflictions and negative karma consummated by oneself, not some charm put by others, and then that you have some amazing esoteric kind of treatment and to remedy that. That is what is really is talking that the wrong livelihood. It's an excellent opportunity for people to hear the Dharma, but they never hear the Dharma if that kind of answers are given, saying your star is the wrong place and making people even more superstitious and not really make them see the Dharma. And they make them to believe in stars or spell put by other people and saying you don't match marrying that person because of this animal sign, all that sort of thing that Buddhists, the culture of Buddhists are always resorting highly on the lamas and monks, always wanting to do that. And unfortunately, majority of lamas and also monks in Thailand seems like all engage in as if they are a bit of a soothsayer, or they are a bit of someone who knows your future or knows that which star is harming you, or something. This sort of thing is definitely not even recommended. Even the person doesn't charge any money or take any money for doing that. Just to give those is like, what a waste of time when you can talk to them the genuine Dharma. And so that's that. And next one is interesting thing about is whether living as a warrior or as a soldier or a security person or as army who defends the country, whose career is regarded very prestigious by the military family, relatives, working for the Defense Department in every various capacity and so on. And quite a lot of people, of course, they have very secure job. They got very, 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 very secure future, and of course, that is their sense of security. But according to Buddhism, working in industry that's called weapon, basically all those is they're very connected. So there is a story here in the sutra. In the sutra, it says the right living for a warrior. The warrior thinks, of course, he's doing that, defending the country and his land and for the people, and so he thinks everything he does is for the good and he's have the prestige and honor. So then Yoda Jiva, the headman, went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat on one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, this is Shakyamuni Buddha, "O Lord, I've heard that it has been passed down by the ancient teaching lineage of warriors that when a warrior strives and exerts himself in battle, if others then strike him down and slay him while he is striving and exerting himself in battle, then with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the company of devas slain in battle." What does the Blessed One have to say about that? So this warrior asked the Buddha, and then Buddha replied, "Enough, headman. Put that aside. Don't ask me that." Buddha simply asked him, stop asking him that, because he thought that was completely senseless. It's pretty obvious it's wrong. At the second time, and also third time, Yoda Jiva, the headman, said, "Lord, I have heard that it has been passed down by the ancient teaching lineage of the warriors that when a warrior strives and exerts himself in battle, if others then strike him down and slay him while he is striving and exerting himself in battle, then with the breakup of his body after death, he is reborn in the company of devas slain in battle." What does the Blessed One have to say about that? So he asked the Buddha 3 times, even though Buddha asked him not to ask that. Apparently, the headman, I haven't been able to get past you by saying, enough, headman, put that aside, don't ask me that. So I will simply answer you. When a warrior strives and exerts himself in battle, his mind is already seized, debased, and misdirected by that thought. May these beings be struck down and slaughtered or annihilated or destroyed. May they not exist. If others then strike him down and slay him while he is thus striving and exerting himself in battle, then with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the hell called the realm of those slain in battle. But if he holds such a view as this, when a warrior strives and exerts himself in battle, if others then strike him down and slay him while he is striving and exerting himself in battle, then with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the company of devas slain in battle. That is his wrong view. Now, there are 2 destinations for a person with the wrong view. I'll tell you, either hell or animal rebirth. When this was said, Yodajiva, the headman, sobbed and burst into tears. Because this is exactly true. Quite a lot of people have this amazing prestige and proud that they belong to military family, and they just think it's prestigious and great honor and so on, brave and hero and so on. But you can see all the war veterans, they barely fought much in the battle. Best fact, they went and saw what it does to people's life, to their friends, and so on. Just because they're exposed to the shooting and killing, even though they didn't kill anybody, even if they kill somebody, they think they have achieved something great. No, it's terrible. It's exact opposite of it. So, what kind of honor? You might have some medals. You might have some this. You might have secure job. But what did you do? What did you get? Did you do to get those prestige and honor, and maybe have a good kind of allowance for your family, and the widows get these, and so on and so forth. But it's all blood, So the Blessed One said, that is what I couldn't get past you by saying, enough, headman, put that aside. Don't ask me that. So people don't even need to ask a question if their livelihood is based on being as a soldier or being as someone who does that. I'm not crying, Lord, because of what the Blessed One has said to me, but simply because I have been deceived and cheated and fooled for a long time by that ancient teaching lineage of warriors who said, when a warrior strives and exerts himself in battle, if others then strike him down and slay him while he is striving and exerting himself in battle, then with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the company of devas slain in battle. So like that, we have people will say they are brave, they are soldiers, they died for the country, they are the heroes, and they may get a military honor and all of that. Of course, country does that. Of course, it wouldn't be a good idea to say anything against that. But at least people have the choice to whether they want to become military, whether they want to go in the kind of any security kind of a role. Because if you are having to shoot, that's a job. Your job is to shoot. You're given a pistol to wear. You are wearing yourself bulletproof vest, but you're quite happy to shoot that bullet on someone on the head where there is no vest. So this whole idea is to destroying life. But having said that, from the Mahayana's point of view, we can say, from the Mahayana point of view, some of the professions that we are talking about as being wrong livelihood according to Sutra may be so from the conventional point of view. But if the person has a greater his reason of doing one of the jobs that are not recommended, because in the story with many of the Indian Mahasiddhas, quite a lot of them were doing just that. That they're doing very things that are told not to do. They did that, and yet they realized that. And so the question is whether some people are not karmically not responsible for engaging in that, or they are beyond. They are so realized that their attitude is not to gain profit for themselves. Maybe they are guiding others on the path through their skillful means. So if their intentions like that, then someone has to do that. Some of the Mahasiddha, like Tilopa was a fisherman, and Shawaripa was a hunter, and so maybe it is through that very kind of a untoward profession, maybe they gain realization. But most people, like I know some people who come to Australia when they couldn't get a job, but they could get a job in an abattoir very easily. I know one guy who he's an ex-monk, and then only job that he could find is work in an abattoir. And then he couldn't believe what he has to do just for the sake of money. And when he goes home back to Tibet, and then people ask him, what's your job? He just couldn't. He just couldn't bear his feeling of embarrassment. What he has to do to make a living, So that's one. So there's lots of industry in which one is directly or indirectly. Having said that, I want to talk a little bit about the contemporary complex nature of the economy of the country like Australia, with the very first world country, where many of the maybe over 26% percentage of people who have various difficulties, and the government has a very good system of looking after them. And majority of able people, whatever professions, whether they are office workers, whether they are just postmen, or what they may be doing, quite a normal, quite good kind of profession, harmless profession. Others are also doing all those dicey, questionable profession. All of them equally contribute to the pool of national revenue, and that what revenue is raised by the government from all the professions then distributed to all the people for their health, for their education, quite a lot of them for their rent, for their food, for their clothes, and so on. So therefore, is there any way that we can say, I have got a right livelihood, I don't do any of that, I don't engage in the war, or I'm not exploiting people, or not serving alcohol, or producing them, or weapon, not that, but nevertheless, if we are all receiving huge number of the percentage of the people are actually receiving from that very money the government collects from everyone as in form of taxes for all the professions. All the professions have sweat and tear has gone into the national revenue, and that is going to everyone in some time or another, where sometime or another we will all be receiving, So that shows how difficult it is to say that I'm living a right livelihood because I'm done to the, but yet you are receiving your daily, your regular, your support is your food, your clothes, shelter, medicine, and your warmth of the body, and all of that is still paid by the sweat and tear of the rest of the population. So therefore, how could we possibly say that I live in a very right livelihood? And I know there is even one award, one Swedish-based award, Swedish version of the Nobel Peace Prize. It's called Right Livelihood Award. Every year they give this Right Livelihood Award. And these kind of organizations are maybe inspired by Nobel Peace Prize, but mainly they think people should have the right to clean water, food, clothes, education, medicine, and somewhere to live, So this is right livelihood. There's so much inequality, so much famine, so much destitution in the world, but at the same time, so much wealth and so much wastage of the wealth. So amount of wasting of the food people do due to their excessive greed and so on, that definitely sounds like a wrong livelihood. And wasting of all the resources, creating all the greenhouse, and all of these things definitely is extravagant form of the materialism. So whether one can rejoice the fact that one is living much simply than others or not, you couldn't bear seeing the huge suffering, industry of suffering caused by the extravagant waste of wealth, food, and things in many wealthy countries, whereas millions are dying almost every day due to malnutrition, due to famine, due to lack of proper clean water and medicine and food and clothes, whereas others has so much access to their needs. So definitely everybody has a certain thinking to do, how to be moderate and how to not live very extravagantly, and instead how can one share one's resources and not become a slave of greed. And there was a text in Choedak Pakpa, who wrote a letter to the Mongol Khan, Yuan Khan, called Prince, I forgot his name. To him, he said there are 4 types of wealth. Wealth that is a friend, wealth that is an enemy, wealth that is a wealth that is useless. So quite a lot of people have none of those wealth. They don't have wealth that is wealth. And they're thankful they don't have a wealth that is enemy, because they don't have any to turn in. They don't have wealth that is friend. So they basically are suffering from lack of wealth, lack of food, clothes, shelter, and medicine. Huge number of world population are suffering from that, whereas many people are living with wealth as enemy. Why? Because they're so greedy, they're so possessive, and their wealth is becoming cause of discord between even the siblings. Even close blood relative families are not friendly, not kind to each other. They have become enemy to each other because of the wealth. So that is sure indication of the wrong livelihood. Whether they themselves got by doing wrong livelihood or not, but somehow how much does the wealth makes wealth is your enemy, because it has turned you to go against even your loved one. There are brothers and sisters ending in court over small material possession. That shows how the wealth is an enemy. So and then the wealth that is useless is you are constantly enslaving yourself to acquire, to work around the clock, do 2-3 jobs, have never time to rest, look up, spend time with the elderly or those who you have responsibility to. That kind of self-enslavement is definitely wrong livelihood, because there's no quality of life, and the thing that you have is not helping you. They only adding to the distress and anxiety and tiredness and exhaustion to you. So that's wealth, is useless wealth. Wealth that is like a friend is that the wealth that you have is that empowers you to give others, that empowers you to share others, that empowers you to make someone happy, that empowers you to educate others, that empowers you to help others to be able to do things they wouldn't do if it wasn't your generosity of the wealth. Therefore, your wealth has become useful. So now the wealth that is useless is not doing either of that. So that this kind of those 4 types of wealth of Choedak Pakpa talks about is very much a kind of a description on the 4 on the kind of a wrong livelihood. Why wealth is enemy? It's because of wrong livelihood. While wealth is useless because long livelihood. While wealth is an enemy, it is due to wrong livelihood. Wealth that is useful, wealth itself is where you actually are able to have you acquired them properly. You are not excess, and you are also using them meaningfully. Then of course that would be a right livelihood. And it's not so much just about how you live and what you make, but how it turns you into a people. People who are very angry are usually angry because they are always what they didn't get or what they didn't get to do with the things. So because of their not having right livelihood, their needs and greed is so strong. Their wanting is so unlimited. Because of that causes as much as hatred, as much as aversion, as much as heartache and tension they have is because of their greed. Right livelihood is try to curtail your greed and try to make a reasonable and balanced life, so that you actually do not excessively work so hard to that almost reduce the quality of your life, that you become slave to the wealth and the money, and you never get to spend them, use them, and one day it will all go to someone else without any having freedom. So that's why it is important to take great measures. So how do you know you are starting to live a right livelihood? You will have a lot more peace and contentment. And not only that, you have a lot of rejoice for the things you have and also things you don't have. You will not feel miserable what you don't have. You actually rejoice the fact that you don't have the need to go and slave yourself to go and get that. So you actually have a lot of joy and contentment by lack of desire, lack of greed, and lack of possessiveness. So that means the person is now free from misery and free to practice Dharma, which is cause of real long-lasting spiritual sustenance. Whereas people who are completely a slave of their possessions and they're wanting more of it, and their stress, their nervousness, their anxiety, their lack of freedom, their inability to enjoy, their miserliness not being able to use for themselves or give to others, makes themselves totally like a committed slave, deluded slave to his own possession, which is his aggregate. The more he has, the more burden he has. And that becomes his suffering and cause of suffering. His greed and his attachment is cause of suffering. Possessions are just misleading, as if they will do something. So people think the possession is some kind of comfort, but actually it's the prison. It's that makes themselves as the prisoner. You can't have prisoner unless there is a prison. So wealth is a kind of a prison, that self-made prison, whereas right livelihood people at least do not create prison for themselves, so that they actually have ability to move and go, and you make a reasonable assessment for what your needs are, and not go beyond that, whether what they call lucrative business. You don't get sort of enchanted by lucrative business because you can make double the more, double the kind of more, profit, or if you like that, you want to go. So you're just constantly a slave of your greed, and you're not better and happier with that. You're constantly depriving yourself of any time for spiritual practice or things you want to do, things you really want to do, you never have time for, and you are just constant slave. And as a result of that, due to wrong livelihood, then people abuse alcohol and drug, and then gambling, and then it gets worse. Then it gets worse and worse. And due to that, they wouldn't hesitate to resorting to violence. They try to take revenge on other people, and then just whole life is completely wasted. So that's why the moderation and contentment, and even the things that we have are usually some came from some other people. So they are actually gifted and empowered by other people we have. We do not have any sense of belonging and ownership of anything, particularly land or things like that. It's just in the traditional societies, they don't sell lands. But of course, we now have become industrialized, and everything is put in boundaries and marked by square feet by square feet, and so the world has become such smaller, and population has increased, so has the greed, and the world has actually materially much more prosperous than before, but people have just as much anxiety, suicide, aggression, alcohol abuse. These are all because of wrong livelihood. People don't have any kind of self-discipline, how to moderate their living that is balanced. And that's why the right livelihood in Buddhism goes in part with the how to observe one's shila of abstention from stealing or killing or destroying lives and things like that. Because if people wanted to kill somebody, they have to get weapons, and they have to buy a weapon from someone who deals a weapon. And if you want to hire someone to do that, you have to intoxicate them with money. You just bribe them and make they become the assassin. So all these harmful kind of activities that people get involved are usually because they are so intoxicated by the false promise of the wealth and possessions that they get so quick money from something, maybe stealing or maybe dealing drugs, or they think it's quick money, but just brings just as much suffering. And a lot of people who are involving in those very permitted form of professions, their lives are all ruined. Not to mention future lives. This life is ruined, and they don't have any leg to stand on because of what they did to their lives. So that's why it is kindness of the Buddha when he gave the teachings how to live a life with the right livelihood. So there are lots of profession these days. They're all mixed. You could hardly, like say industry. Like say if you want to put money in the bank or something. If you invest money in the bank, what is the bank investing money? In weapon dealing, submarine dealings, and various weapons, various kind of questionable kind of black market or whatever. Your money is being invested in such things. And if you're getting good dividend, what is the good dividend from? Good dividend is from those things. So that's why it is important to be contented with what hands, and make sure that one doesn't engage in those questionable forms of profession, even if you are living fairly simple. But still, you need to realize that what you are getting, like the whether benefit from the government or some kind of support system, these are all coming from the drops of various professions money that government collects, and we are all getting that. So we are not really almost every mouthful of the morning cereal that we eat, that probably that much many insects and living beings would have killed. And so that's why we have to eat them, use them with grace, and take them morally and with great contentment, and therefore not idolize, saying that I live a very pure right livelihood and I will never do that, thinking that you are immaculately living a kind of pure right livelihood, when you are complete part of this kind of industrialized society where his economy is so connected. So therefore we cannot say, I'm so lucky I live a pure livelihood, as if you don't have any reason to be a bit more thankful and thoughtful and be gracious and be modest. So this teaching on right livelihood is not so much an imposition of how people should live, but they should be mindful of how they are spending time, why they're working so hard, what are they doing with the money, do they really need to work that much, at the expense of their own valuable life. So therefore, one needs to make a reasonable assessment of how to live with skillfulness and balance. And like the Buddha himself taught that everything should be practiced middle way within the reasonable ability for us to adjust as best as we can. So with this, we will conclude here this talk on right livelihood. Thank you very much. So I will conclude here. Everyone, do the dedication of merit. Om Bade Mere Me Ho Da Deva Ge Hom Neze Me Ale Bere Robe Brande Oshana Bada Desenere Herenda Maya Na Dewa Dewa Mere Ra Hevega Me Obe Vegas Relevas Truhoda Maya Na Deja Gareja Manju Shenewade Asama Dabadra Dilawa Follow Avade Zamba Ashade Dege Mere Mede Excellent Body Cheda Tebe Erena Yeraza where has been bomed angry freely without generation. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Catch you next time. Take care.